UFC 275 is in the books, and it was incredible. How often do the cards that look underwhelming on paper just over deliver? And we have a new light heavyweight champion. I am Alex Donno alongside Johnathan Ramlakhan, Mr. Three-Piece Combo. How are you?
Wonderful. Great pay-per-view. Woke up still excited. Excited to talk about it.
And Frank Zaffere, I feel like someone's using like a vacuum in the background at his location. How are you, sir?
I'm good. That noise will stop momentarily. I apologize.
That is absolutely hilarious. So, guys, if anyone now, a lot of people were predicting Jiri Prochazka, including me, to win that fight last night or to win the light heavyweight title. But for anyone out there that had it fifth round submission in favor of Jiri with 28 seconds left in the fight, if you had that on your bingo card, congratulations. If you put down a specific fifth round submission victory for Prochazka as your method of victory, you're probably watching us from your private island right now. Johnathan, I'll start with you, my friend. The back and forth in that fight, it was an epic. It had the types of vibes going back a little ways to, certain fights you just know, I'm watching an instant classic. I'm watching something special. Dan Henderson versus Shogun back in the day, it had those sort of vibes because anytime it looked like one of the combatants was battering the other and had the upper hand, momentum swung right in the other direction, man. Especially, Johnathan, so many times in that fight, Glover Teixeira was taking dominant ground positions way too easily. Jiri Prochazka gave up too many takedowns, especially in the first two rounds when they were dry. The takedowns were a little bit harder to come by into the championship rounds when both guys were so sweaty and a little bit bloody. And how many times did Prochazka give up his back in that fight? Glover had so many chances.
Yeah, this was like you said, this was one of the most exciting fights that you can watch. Like the back and forth, nobody got too much momentum before the other guy started taking. I mean, you go into the first round, you have to imagine that Jiri Prochazka is the guy with the momentum. He's the younger fighter. He's the one that always usually finishes the fights in the earlier round, and he's the favorite. But what does Glover Teixeira does? He puts him on his back. He makes him work. He hits him with some really, really good ground and pound. And then that's towards the end of the round one. Now, going towards round two, the beginning, Jiri Prochazka on the feet, absolutely nasty. He was piecing up Glover Teixeira. You're like, oh, this might be it. He had that weak first round. He's going to come in the second round. He's going to beat him up. What happens? Glover Teixeira takes him down, potentially wins that round. Not sure how the judges had it, but got some nasty ground and pound, cut him with a beautiful elbow. His ground and pound tonight was absolutely disgusting. Third round, fourth round, fifth round, just everything. Back and forth. Jiri would seem to hurt Glover, and then Glover would take him down. There was nobody getting too much momentum. And then towards the end of the fight, that fifth round was all Glover Teixeira. I think he had a little lapse in judgment at the beginning of the fourth round. He hit him. He had him almost unconscious, and that's something which you have to do for Jiri Prochazka. And he jumped guard. He jumped into a guillotine. I don't know why you did that. A guy, Frank, we talked about his fight IQ in the fifth round. When you're all sweaty and you have a guy hurt, you don't put him in a space where he can get some rest and where he can get his cognizant back. You put him in a spot where Jiri was able to get back, kind of get his bearings back, and that ultimately cost him the fight, in my opinion. He was very, very close to putting him around. He had the scorecards won. I feel like he won at least 3, or if not 4, if you're looking at that fourth round or that fifth round card as far as the scorecards go. But Jiri Prochazka, man, this is a guy who's out of a literal comic book or a superhero. Dude's getting beat up the entire fight. It looks like it's over for him multiple times in this fight. At the end of it, he submits a guy that was looking for a rear naked choke all night long from him, and he's now the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world.
Man, this fight went exactly like I expected it would until the end. And, when we did our pre-fight show, Alex brought up age. Is age the issue for Glover being the underdog? I thought age was the issue for Glover losing this fight. I thought that in ways that were not necessarily perceptible to the viewing audience, he was tiring faster than his opponent, especially putting in all that wrestling work and grappling work. And I thought at the end, he made mistakes that were something that you do when you're tired, and I thought that was the difference. I'm in a weird spot where this guy on his third UFC fight, now suddenly he's UFC lightweight champion. I don't know if his performance is indicative of resolve, championship medal, finding a way to win, a long reign, or he was exposed and got lucky. I don't know. I don't know what I saw, but what I do know is I want to see it again. Because Glover, I mean, look, the one thing I left out in my accolades of Glover Teixeira on the last show in the current construct of the light heavyweight division is the durability. He took some big shots, and there was no problem. He was eating those like candy. I mean, I'm sure they rattled his brain, but not enough to put him off what I thought was at least, I thought he was up at least 4 rounds to 1. I thought it was going to be a easy unanimous decision until it wasn't.
I'll tell you exactly what it was with Jiri Prochazka, and you were like 2/3 of the way there with what you said. So I'll take it the rest of the way. So he wins the fight just based on being the better athlete, and probably his youth has something to do with it, because Jiri Prochazka, it looked to me like he didn't really prepare for any of the things you need to prepare for in order to beat Glover Teixeira. I know it's ironic to say that because he did beat Glover Teixeira, but everything that we talked about in our pre-fight show on Thursday, when it comes to being sharper in defending takedowns, not giving up position, also not leaving your chin wide open. Now that's Prochazka's style, right? Because his striking comes from his movement and his length, right? So he doesn't typically take, a whole lot of fight-ending damage because of the way he's very hard to hit with his length and the way that he moves his head. But still, you leave your chin open. He ate some ridiculous overhand rights from Glover Teixeira. So honestly, it was a low fight IQ performance from Jiri Prochazka, although ironically, him winning the fight had a lot to do with Teixeira's fight IQ and jumping for that guillotine, which had a lot to do with fatigue. I think Alex M said it in the chat that, when Teixeira, who had Prochazka late in the fight, rocked and then jumped for that guillotine where he lost the position, when he probably could have ended the fight on the feet, was poor fight IQ. But Jiri had poor fight IQ throughout the fight. I just think that he ended up being just, a little bit better when it comes to the athleticism, and he got his opportunity to take that choke, which nobody saw coming from a mile away. I mean, I was surprised watching him, like, wait, did he tap? Did that just happen? The people in the arena, Singapore Indoor Stadium, seemed a little bit surprised at first because it wasn't like it's a very quick submission, only 28 seconds left in the fight. So honestly, like, Jonathan, what do we do now when we're talking about what Jiri Prochazka does next year and the future of the light heavyweight division? Because this is obviously a really exciting, really skilled light heavyweight champion who I still don't think at 29 years old has reached his full potential, because he does need to plug up some of those holes in his game. But at the same time, you feel like this belt could just change hands again the next time he fights, right? So what do we do next? Is there a possibility, just based on how close this fight was, for a Glover Teixeira rematch? They usually don't like to do that unless there's a really long reigning champion, which Glover was not, or if there was some controversy in the fight, which there wasn't. So I don't think he's going to get the immediate crack. We had our guy, former champion Jan Blachowicz, was sitting ringside, and they could be building up the Europe versus Europe, Czech Republic versus Poland. That'd be a really big fight overseas. Personally, I think the contender should probably come from the winner of the it's going to be July 30th, so it's a month and a half away. We're going to have Magomed Ankalaev taking on Anthony Smith. I feel like Ankalaev's probably going to win that fight, but maybe whoever comes out victorious there, cough, cough, Ankalaev, should get the next shot. But there are plenty of options. Like, what do you think the future is going to hold, Jonathan, for this division?
If I had to make a prediction, I'd probably go with the Jan Blachowicz one, because he just got the win over Rakic via, TK. Obviously, it was an injury, but he got the win over Alexander Rakic. And like you said, Dana White, he plays a business game, right? He's a businessman. And if you look at the Europe versus Europe thing, UFC is coming out of COVID, whereas mostly either just Abu Dhabi or Las Vegas or a few select spots in the United States. They're starting to expanding again, right? They're going into Austin. They're going into different places like Singapore. I think this is a good way to kind of crack that European market again. I know they have France coming up. They did England a couple months ago. this is just another way they can continue to grow. I think Jan Blachowicz has earned that shot as well, right? I mean, he lost versus Glover Teixeira, but he did get a win back as a high-ranking contender, so that essentially kind of puts you in that spot. But to your point, Ankalaev is that new blood kind of guy that would make this just an exciting fight. It's like, okay, two guys that have never got it. This is the new blood of the heavyweight division, right? This is, okay, after Miocic and after DC retired, who was next, right? Now it's like, okay, John Jones is gone. Glover Teixeira is on the tail end of his career. Okay, you can see two guys like Jiri Prochazka and Magomed Ankalaev. This is the next generation of the light heavyweight division. And now I'm not sure if we're going to see something again in this division like we saw with John Jones and a guy hold on to a belt for a very long time. And I think that's the expectation a lot of us subconsciously have, is who's that next long reigning light heavyweight champion. We have to remember that doesn't happen all the time. So it could be very possible that this title shifts hands, 3 or 2 times in the next 3 or 4 years, because these are just much more competitive guys. Like, these guys are much closer as far as how good they are, and the edge is very, very thin. Like, it's going to be really close. But if I had to take a guess on who that next fight would be, I would say Jan Blachowicz. I think they do that European matchup, and I think that's a big business fight.
I think you're absolutely right, because look, the UFC, last time I checked, is in the business of making money. And right now, I mean, Ankalaev, it should be him, in my opinion, if he wins, but he's not marketable. Who knows who he is as the casual fan base? I mean, no one. Jan Blachowicz at least has that victory over Israel Adesanya, and the European thing will make them a lot of money. So in a division shockingly and somewhat suddenly devoid of marketable names, that's the only 2 names that make sense over there in Europe. Big colossal fight, probably break gate records or something, and that's what we're going to get. You say it's the new blood. You're right, but how are we going to get to a position where, like, this is like the kind of leading weight division that it was for so many years in the UFC? It seems so far away.
Yeah, this division, this is the one that made me fall in love, truly fall in love with the UFC. Like, I dabbled a little bit in the 90s, like the old kind of Wild Wild West days. But then what really got me back in, Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, Tito Ortiz, when they were battling out at 205 pounds. Like, that's what really got me in. And then that division was just so stacked for a really long time, because like Chuck Liddell handed the torch to Rampage, then we had the Rashad Evans era, and then John Jones just comes right after that.
Don't forget Machida. Don't forget Machida.
The Lyoto Machida era, which didn't last as long as I think Joe Rogan thought it would last after he knocked out Rashad Evans. You're right. And then Shogun, and then John Jones takes the belt. And, for like a decade, he's, one of the best fighters on the planet. And by the way, I want to remind everybody, you're in here, smash the like button, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're watching us on 5 Reasons Sports YouTube, awesome. But keep in mind, we are also simulcasting on the brand new Combat Center channel. So if you're a fight fan and you just want the fight stuff, then find us at Combat Center and make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel. We're trying to grow that channel. It's only been around for a little bit. We're growing each and every day, and make sure you hit the like button as well. And man, Frank, don't you feel like, you have to wonder, is John Jones really fully committed to this heavyweight thing? Because if he were to change his mind and say, you know what, let me see what's going on down there again at 205, he could waltz right back down there and become the champion. I'm not sure he can do that at heavyweight, but at light heavyweight, yeah, I think he could.
I mean, he's left the division in ruins. I mean, You were just going through the various champions. During that time, it would be even more important to remember that the number 5 guy versus the number 8 guy could headline a UFC pay-per-view. I mean, like, the division was stacked with talent and really marketable names, and they're all gone, and they're all going thanks to John Jones. He laid waste to the division, and it will take years for it to come back. And yeah, he could pop in there, and nobody could stand in his way right now, obviously. But I'm much more interested in John Jones's heavyweight. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I'm just much more interested in that next chapter.
Yeah, I think, like you said, man, I was thinking about it too. I was like, the wrestling of John Jones would just absolutely maul Jiri Prochazka. He could absolutely come back and destroy this division. But he's talked about wanting to become a heavyweight correctly, putting that size on correctly, versus having a mistake like Adesanya did when he came up to 205 and just tried to fight at body weight. So I don't think he's going to do it, even though it may be tempting, because you can go out there and I still think he can reign for another 2-3 years with these next Like these up and comers, I don't think there's anybody that sticks out per se that would be better than John Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are right because, and also John Jones, he was the light heavyweight champ for so long that, and even when he wasn't the champ, like when he got the belt stripped or whatever, like come on, he was the best in that division for so long. Legacy wise, he's got nothing left to prove at 205. Like if he really wants to up the legacy, he could just either retire now if he doesn't have any financial concerns, which he might, all the legal trouble, or if you want to up that legacy, I think the only way to do it is at heavyweight. So a couple of other very eventful fights I want to get to on the card. Now, I mentioned you don't usually do an immediate rematch unless there's a long reigning champion involved, or if there is some controversy involved. Now, you had a long reigning champion retaining her belt in the co-main event with some controversy stirred into that pot. Guys, I thought Tayla Santos should have gotten her hand raised when they went to the scorecards. I thought she clearly won the first 3 rounds of that fight. And then I also wonder how the fight was, the 4th and 5th round, which she clearly lost, were affected by that, unintentional foul that she suffered. And so, listen, for as dominant of a champion as Valentina Shevchenko has been, and I thought she would waltz through Tayla Santos. That clearly wasn't the case. I don't know if I'll call this a robbery. Maybe people sometimes use that word a little bit too liberally, but I thought the wrong fighter won. So, Jonathan, what do we do next? We've got to run this one back, right?
It's hard to run it back though, right? It's hard to run it back with a woman that wasn't a champion, although it was an arguable fight, right? 49-46, first of all,
that was one of the cards. That was ridiculous.
That makes no sense to me because personally, like you said, I had it 3 rounds to 2, and that headbutt played a very big part of it as well. I mean, Valentina was able to, obviously she was better on the feet, right? She was able to be more effective and able to land more strikes, but it wasn't like she was head and shoulders and absolutely destroying Tayla Santos, and then Tayla would get the last second takedown and then do nothing with it. No, she was landing some good leg kicks. I feel like both females were doing a good job throwing a good amount of kicks. Santos did a good job getting her down, taking the back, putting her in dangerous positions. Like if you looked and judged each round by the way it's supposed to be coded, by control, by damage, by all these different things, Tayla Santos had Shevchenko in the most dangerous positions of those fights for a considerable period of time. It wasn't just 10, 15 seconds at the end of the round. No, she got her on her back, and she was able to hold her down for a good minute and a half for multiple different rounds, and she was able to get her take her down multiple times. So I thought that Tayla did a very, very good job taking the fight to the ground and just making Shevchenko uncomfortable. Like before that headbutt, she was seeing a lot of things. Like she was good defensively. She wasn't getting hit with those spinning kicks that we see a lot of other fighters get with. Okay, the spinning heel kick to the body, that's a tough one to guard anyways, especially if you're lateral with someone. So that's, you're going to eat those sometimes. But other than that, Santos had a great performance tonight. She was able to mitigate a lot of the damage, even on the feet when her eyes were shut. Like she was able to do a decent job, like staying alive in the fight. Sure, she got hit with some flurries. It's Valentina Shevchenko. It's going to happen. But I felt at the end of the day, I felt like Tayla Santos did enough to win this fight. But I don't think this is a fight you can see a rematch right away. I think you see Tayla Santos maybe get a fight with another contender. I think she could probably win that fight with just what she showed tonight. I feel like her striking ability and her ability to mix it up just makes her kind of a good contender moving forward as far as what we can maybe see after the future of Valentina Shevchenko. But I would agree with you, man. I think Tayla Santos won this fight, and it's arguable. You can give Shevchenko the fight, but 49-46 doesn't make any sense to me.
Man, if you look, if you say that you think that Santos won the fight, then we've got to do the rematch. I mean, and Valentina runs through everyone, so we finally saw her vulnerable. But I want to give Valentina a little credit. Alex and I are both sporting our college football gear today.
I've got a real program. You've got a bunch of losers down there
representing our programs. And one thing that our programs have in common, besides winning a lot, is that a lot of times we're big favorites in games, and you can usually you blow that team out, but that other team that you're playing, that you're a huge favorite against, for them, this is the Super Bowl. This is the national championship. This is for all the marbles. This is the game circled on the schedule. This is the only game they care about winning. Alex, you know what I'm talking about.
For sure.
The FAUs of the world. So, I mean, they can't wait for this. Now, if you come in sleepy, if you come in off, they're going to punch you right in the face. And all of a sudden, that game can become a nightmare. And even winning, you lose, which is kind of what happens to Valentina, because she shouldn't have looked so vulnerable. She shouldn't have been out hustled. She shouldn't have looked like not the stronger fighter. I think it was just a bad night for her against a woman who was like, holy shit, this is it for me. I mean, like, this is even if I make this look tough for her, I win, you know? And so I thought Valentina sucking it up and finding a way to win, even when she was off against a person who was treating this fight like it was the last fight of her life, like she was going to go out on her shield if she couldn't win. I think she deserves credit for finding a way to win. Now, as far as the headbutts, though, like, there were two, right? I mean, I thought there were two. I mean, just because Santos took all of the damage from it, I'm not sure whose fault it was, but it really stunk of Evander Holyfield. It really stunk of Evander Holyfield. So it sucks, man, because that eye damage probably changed the outcome of the fight.
Now, we did see a career come to an end. I don't know if she will revisit this decision or not, but Joanna Jędrzejczyk, after suffering a highlight reel to end all highlight reels. You talk about giving that home crowd what they were looking for. Wang Zhili, the spinning back fist knockout, and Joanna, former champion, goes down face first. She was okay afterwards, thank goodness, but unbelievable finish. And Joanna announces she's hanging it up at 35 years old. Unbelievable career. I mean, Jonathan, is there even any debate? Like, to this point, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, best female strawweight fighter of all time. Like, there's not really any debate for that. But I'm sorry that this is perhaps the last time we ever see her fight.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely correct with that. I think she is the best in that division of all time. She's hung around the title contention for throughout multiple eras of women's MMA. We have to remember, like, she's one that evolved with the game. She was pretty much mostly like a kickboxer, and when you saw earlier parts of MMA, okay, it was different specialists, and then those specialists kind of got phased out. She was a specialist that adapted her game and became better as she grew older. Now, obviously, we saw Weili take her down tonight, and that's the weakness of Joanna. But she didn't get knocked out on the ground, right? She was on the feet when she got knocked out. So I think this is a great move for her. I think, when you come back and you're fighting an entirely anticipated rematch and it ends like this, and it's like, okay, like she said, she's been in the sport for 20 years, since she was about 15 years old. And now she wants to make business moves. She wants to have a family. She wants to do these other things. I think it's a great move for Joanna. I wish her well in her retirement, and exciting. Like you said, probably the most prestige fighter in this division. And it's sad to see her go, but it's exciting that we see some new young blood rise up in the same time.
I thought the difference is Weili's improving. Mm-hmm. She's improving. Joanna's the same fighter. She's a great fighter, but I don't see the evolution. And I thought that was the difference in the fight. I thought Joanna was facing a different, more improved fighter. And I thought the ending indicated that. I mean, Joanna hanging it up is, I think, indicative of the fact that there's just no path for her now. I don't know. I was surprised by it, but I thought that must be her mental mindset. Like, there's no, where is my path? So, I'm just going to stop. And man, that last fight between those two, I said it before on our last show. I mean, those take years off your career. And I just think she wants to be done with that.
And yeah, agreed down there to Shawnee. Huge props to JJ. And by the way, huge props to Johnathan Ramlakhan, because he made that banner where he actually had to spell out her last name. Every time I try, Jonathan, to spell out Jędrzejczyk, I always have to Google it. Did you do a Google cut and paste?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, good. Yeah, I wanted to make sure you didn't know off the top of your head how to spell that.
No, there's no way I'm spelling. I mean, there's too many names on this UFC roster that I can't spell off the top of my head. So
it took me a month to learn how to spell Prochazka. I'm not sure I say it correctly, but I do spell it correctly, and that's not an easy one. But Jędrzejczyk is way tougher. So, and huge shout out to everybody who joined us in the live chat. Even if you didn't join us live and you watch this later on, hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe, not only if you're watching us on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, but also subscribe to our Combat Sports specific channel. We simulcast on Combat Center, so make sure you subscribe to the Combat Center channel. And if you missed any part of this video and you want to hear about the championship changing hands at light heavyweight, rewind back to the beginning. We talked about Jiri Prochazka, who was about to lose on the scorecards and then gets the submission with 28 seconds. Frank Zaffere, huge thank you, sir. Anything you want to plug?
No, nothing to plug. I just I'll see you guys Wednesday. And,
yes, sir.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Mr. Three-Piece Combo, anything you want to plug on the way out?
Yeah, I'll be doing since we're doing these shows, it's kind of like a big picture thing. I was thinking about what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do individual fight breakdowns. So maybe like 8 to 12 minutes of Kemet versus Cater. That's coming up. We're gonna do some detailed kind of in-depth breakdown with that stuff. But I want to give a shout out to a couple of the other guys. I mean, Jake Matthews with a great performance over Andre Fialho, Josh Kulabau and Sengmu Choi with a phenomenal fight in the prelims. Like, this is those cards that we talked about. Like, so many names were made tonight. There were so many names on the undercard that we didn't even talk about tonight that became much more much more enticing as far as can they become tenders in the future. So this is something that a card that over delivered. We ranked it as a 6.5 coming in.
I went 5.5 by the way. You said 6.5. I said 5.5. It was like a 10.5.
And it over-delivered. So this is exactly why you watch all MMA cards, right? You learn these guys and you watch their journey. And that's the love of you. Or that's the beauty of MMA is all these guys' journey. Look at somebody like Jiri Prochazka. Look at somebody like Glover Teixeira. All these different stories. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And I'm really glad I get to cover it with you guys.
Well said. You can see our Twitter handles, except for Frank. Follow Frank at realfrank_Z. He's embarrassed because he only has I don't know. How many followers do you have, Frank?
I don't know. 50? 45. I don't know. I'm waiting for Elon Musk to tell me how many of them are bots. So I'll wait to find out.
Love. Alex said he wasn't going to watch it. He FOMO'd into UFC 275. So, yeah, we will talk to you guys on Wednesday. And keep your eye out on the Combat Center channel because Jonathan's going to give you a lot of fight breakdowns and nuggets as well. So we will see you guys on Combat Center, also streaming on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. See ya.